Diane Marie Brown, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
being here. And I'm loving our guests who have been coming on and all of the pretty books behind them. I hope that's really your background. Is that really your background?
It is.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
You have a really good virtual backdrop. So I
yeah,
have to
some people do have really great virtual backgrounds, but it's good that it's books, especially if you're an author. So, do you have a copy of your book handy with you?
Sure. So
And it's called Black Candle Women, as I said, and this is a generational novel. So, tell us the core plot of the book.
Sure. Well, Black Candle Women tells a story of of four generations of women who live together in the same house. They live mostly isolated from the rest of the world because they are dealing with a deadly curse that kills anyone with whom they fall in love.
Mm.
They're forced to wrestle the curse when the youngest brings home a love interest for the first time, and because she doesn't realize that there's been a curse. And we go back to 1950s New Orleans to learn about the curse's origin put into place by a voodoo sorceress.
Okay,
Wow.
now for so many different reasons, I need this book. Being from New Orleans, and I feel like it's serendipitous because I was going through my Audible store just recently and ran across Black Candle Women. So and then all of a sudden you pop up and you were on the list for us to interview. I was like, okay, maybe I should read this book.
I would love for you to read it. So yes.
I'm sure. Yes. This sounds like a great book with a lot of different layers. Did this take a lot of research for you to bring all of these layers together?
Yes. So I originally had the idea a long time with a class I was taking, and I don't even remember the prompt, but that's where I came up with this family of women. And I thought of them being cursed. I was kind of thinking of generational curses, and that's kind of a theme that's in the book. But I also thought it would be fun to have an actual curse. And so I came up with this family. I wanted them to be tied to New Orleans, and it just evolved from there. So eventually I got the idea for there to be some connection to voodoo and hoodoo, and that is where a lot of the research came into place. And the more research I did, the larger that element became of the book. So it just kind of gave me more ideas and evolved.
Wow. And is the plot, it sounds uh different from other plots. Let me say that. It's not a plot that you hear about regularly. I don't remember, and I'm an avid reader. I don't remember another book with this exact plot. Now, and don't give away anything in this, don't give away any spoilers. But if there's a curse and they can't, like, how do they keep the generations going? Is that something we have to find out in the book?
Well, no, what happens is they might have, an affair with somebody, or maybe even had a love interest that they really cared about. But within a matter of time, after they've become pregnant or once they've had a child, the uh, men in most of the cases will die. They learn that the men die. But the person who puts the curse into place verbalizes this. So it's not like something that they just kind of figure out. The Bellanova, who is the voodoo sorceress, she tells Augusta, who's a matriarch of the family, that she is cursing her. And she has a very specific reason for doing so that we learn about when we go through her story.
Okay. So does the book, this is plot of the book, the setting, is it New Orleans, or do they leave New Orleans and go
The
somewhere
plot-
else?
Yes. So part of the Great Migration, we saw people leaving the South and going to Chicago, going to the East Coast, and some people went to California. So in this case, we have the family who came out to California, similar to what my parents did. They're from Louisiana and they moved out to California,
Okay.
and haven't really gone back, even though they have connections there. But we do go back to New Orleans through the matriarch story. So there is some time spent there in the book.
Okay, so it kind of goes back in time, and the storyline goes
Yes.
from past to present, and so we
Yes.
get some of that.
Yes.
Okay, well, that sounds interesting. This must be historical night, because the
Yes,
next
it is.
guest is
But,
historical too.
the other part the other layer to this is there's so much mystery to New Orleans. I went on the so-called haunted ghost tour in New
Mhm.
Orleans.
He
He
or
gets-
she says, "I will not be ignored."
Yes. My dog gets jealous if I'm talking to other people.
Yeah, we have a cat that
I
does
went
that.
on a haunted ghost tour in New Orleans, and it really wasn't, for me, it wasn't scary, but it unpeeled a piece of history that, being from New Orleans, I don't think that we always appreciate the amount of history and mystery that's a part of the city. We almost kind of take it for granted. So when we do the tourist thing and we actually get to walk around and learn a little bit more about our city and all of the mystery that underlies the history of the city, it makes us appreciate it more. So when I went on this tour, and I learned about things that weren't exactly scary, but it was interesting, those different pieces of history. And so when I'm listening to you talk about this book, even though they eventually kind of leave New Orleans, I'm still hearing a lot that relates to that mystery and that intrigue of the city that people just don't think about every day.
Yes, that's very true. And what they do is they bring that with them. And um we see it in their daily practices, and they've integrated it into their work lives. So I don't want to say the main character, because they're kind of all main characters, but Victoria, she is a marriage and family therapist, and we see her bringing in some practices and some beliefs in her own way into her work with her clients. Maybe not the best thing to do. And her sister, who is more a hoodoo practitioner, she also does what she can to try to help out her sister's clients. She works as her sister's receptionist, and maybe doing some work behind her back, using some techniques that she learned from her grandmother many years ago.
Okay, so is this your debut book? Did I read that?
It's my
Okay.
first book published. I've written other books. This is the
Okay.
first published. Yes.
Okay, well,
That's another thing. It's the night of the debut authors.
yeah,
who had
has
very
written multiple books.
project.
That book took off. Whose book has really taken off and done very well. Now you're
Yeah.
the first. Were you going to say something, Rhonda?
No, I was just saying it's a very aggressive project for a first-time author.
Yeah.
So we've said this on the show a few times that often an author's first book is a semi-autobiography because they want to write about themselves in a fictional way. But you went an entirely different route with your debut novel. Why did you choose to make this your first piece? Did you just
Well,
want to kind of
yeah, well, the first book that I wrote was was a lot closer to who I am, you could probably call it. Um, Maybe not autobiographical, but the protagonist had a lot of similarities to me. And I had an agent for that book, but she was never able to sell it. And so um, she she attempted to, she pitched it for maybe a year and a half or 2 years. And so just kind of let that go and moved on. And that's when I decided, well, then I wrote another book and that one didn't really go anywhere. And so I decided to go to school and work on my craft, and was connected to some really great instructors who are working professionals, a program that I went through. And I think I just kind of fine-tuned my writing skills, learned a little bit more about pacing and some elements that maybe I wasn't um, as developing as well before. And then even with that book, I'm sorry, even with this book, it still took a long time for me to get it published. And so I was just gonna say earlier, it's just kind of all timing. This happened to be the right time for this book for me.
Mm. Now we've had some, at least one, I think I want to say two, but people whose books were picked by Reese Witherspoon. But you're the first that we had that had a book that was a Jenna Bush read.
Mhm.
So how did that come about?
Yeah, that was a really wonderful surprise. So I finished my book about 10 months before the uh, published publishing date. And it was still a little, I'd say like a 95% finished draft, because they want to be able to send it out to journalists, magazines, to influencers. They want it to be reviewed, and then they send, typically, if it's the kind of book that they consider kind of book club fiction, they'll send it out to the book clubs. And so I knew they wanted it early to send out to just everyone, but I wasn't even thinking about the book clubs because I didn't think they did anything that early. So in August of 2022, I was contacted by my editor and my agent that they wanted to talk to me. And I was kind of scared because I don't really talk to my editor very much, a lot through email, but we don't really talk on the phone very much. And so they called and they shared the news that it had been selected and by Jenna Bush Hager for as a Read with Jenna pick, and would be featured on the Today Show, and that she was starting a production company and also wanted to option it. So it was a lot of
Wow.
big information in one phone call, and so I was in a lot of shock for a while, and I couldn't tell anyone, which was
Okay,
the
yeah.
hard part, but still, still I was just extremely happy. I told my husband, but nobody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, when they do those kinds of things, it's like on the Voice or American Idol, people can't tell
Yes,
people
yeah,
that they made the cut, and they have to keep that to themselves for months. That has
yes.
to be difficult. So one of our regular viewers has a comment. She said her book club just read your book and discussed it, and she said they had a few questions that made us wonder about certain paths you took.
you got to go to the next comment.
Oh, she said it looks like you were having fun with the character of Victoria because she didn't catch a popular play on words. Her morning appointment was someone called Beyonce. Not Beyonce, but
Beyond
two
say.
names, Beyonce.
Yes. Victoria's she's kind of the most straight-laced of the family members, not into pop culture, doesn't have a quick sense of humor because she feels kind of a burden on her shoulder, probably more than anyone else. And she's kind of the caretaker of the family. Whereas all the other characters, um, I think they have a lot more fun in life, I guess, or fun playing around in life, especially her sister. And so that was kind of her sister trying to play with her a little bit.
So, that reminded me of several different period shows I've seen. One was the Black version of Sense and Sensibility, and the other one was Queen Charlotte, where they had the orchestra or like the band playing contemporary song
Oh yeah.
with the violin.
Yes.
Actually, I don't know if you caught it. And last week we were talking about roots, and during the wedding party, they were playing a John Legend song, but they did it with
With
the
the
string.
violin.
And I kept saying that song sounds
It
so
sounds familiar. But I think that's really great because it really makes it kind of pulls it into the now, even though it is a period, when it's a period show or movie or series or whatever. So,
Yeah.
so
I
what
think
happened with
good
the
for
Jenna
them.
Bush Reid? Like, does she have a book club? Like, is it a conversation where it's a group of people, or is it just her kind of endorsing a book?
It's probably more the latter, although so she typically has the authors on the show at the very end of the month where they're selected, and they might bring in a local book club, or for mine, they had people who had read the book in virtually to ask questions. And so in that sense, that's why it's called a book club. It just and I they just try to change it up from month to month, depending
Mhm.
upon the book. They might do a little something different.
So I'm sure that really helped with book sales.
Yes, especially
Mhm.
as a debut, it's hard to be seen. It's hard to be seen for a lot of reasons, even more established writers, right? Because every Tuesday you have 10, 15, 20 new books
That come
coming
out.
out and taking place on the shelf.
Mhm.
And so it can be hard, especially with booksellers and publishers trying to figure out, what is the book we really want to push. And oftentimes it's not going to be your debut author or your debut author, your Black debut author, right?
Right.
So it's it was really beneficial and helpful, and I'm very grateful because it gave the book a platform that I think it definitely wouldn't have had otherwise.
Just out of curiosity, was it during Black History Month when they did it?
Well,
Do you
my book
remember?
came out on February 28th, so it was a March pick. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
not
So, okay. So I was just wondering if, sometimes that's when you get the plug in,
right.
for some people. So you can't knock it. It's just it is what it is. Sometimes if you didn't have Black History Month, you wouldn't get an opportunity at all. So
Right. Yeah. And it was kind of funny because I of course I knew I was a pick. And so when February came around before my book came out, I was very pleased that the February author was Black. And I'm like, all right, we got 2 months in a row.
oh, do you remember who it was?
Jessica George, she wrote Mommy.
Okay, I don't know. I have to look that up.
everybody
Yeah,
on the show.
Are you familiar with that one, Rhonda?
No, I'm not.
There's
might have
I
seen
think
that.
I've seen that cover. I've seen that. but I didn't know what it was about. So I have to investigate more. You know, there's so many books. And so
there
we
are
try to
so
get as many people on as we can.
That is
So,
wonderful.
do you have, did you get a 2-book deal or a 3-book deal?
I just have a 1 book deal. So I am busy working on my next book and hoping to sell that very soon.
Okay, so is it going to be a sequel to this one, or will it be a standalone?
It is a standalone, but um I kind of like the speculative element, although I didn't find my book to be, I didn't really think about it as speculative, but it's kind of been labeled that way. And so I'm kind of going in that direction full force. And this one definitely will have magic. Because some people don't, for people who are practitioners of voodoo and hoodoo, they, that's just what they believe, right? They don't see it as magic, but that's why it's been known as a speculative book, but I really kind of like playing around with those magical elements, or just having one magical element and everything else is very grounded and normal. So that's how the 2 books would be connected.
Okay, so that's kind of like your signature for now.
For now, because I
Mhm.
also have
Because
a
it can
third book.
change.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. My third book, if I'm able to get to the third, which I pray that I am, it's straight up romantic comedy. So no magic.
Okay, well, that could be, romance is magic.
True.
I was just gonna say, you're totally giving me Children of Blood and Bone vibes. When you were talking about the magic, because that was a huge theme in that story.
Yeah.
Right? If you haven't read that, it's a good book. And I believe it's actually a young reader, but it was so good, I was into it too. So
Yeah,
Yes,
I think it is young adult fiction.
I
yeah,
know of it, but I haven't read it yet.
yeah, it's a young adult, but when I started reading, I was like, man, this is good enough for adults to enjoy. I guess it's kind of like Harry Potter, where that was really supposed to be for young adults or kids, and adults got into it.
Mhm.
Children of Children of Blood and Bone was kind of on that same realm. But when you talk about magic, that's what it reminded me of, because, like I said, it's such a huge theme in stories, and because I almost don't even feel like you can incorporate magic into a book and then it takes a back seat. It
Right.
kind of fights to be on that front row. See me, I'm here.
Yes, that's definitely the case. And so um yeah, it's just a matter of crafting the story so that whatever that magical element is, your readers can suspend their disbelief. If it's something different, it takes some time to build that world, or make sure that people understand the rules without hitting them over the head with the rules, right? So yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're just about at the top of the hour, but Stephanie Burnham once again said that Ava DuVernay made comments about your book, and she wants to know if she may be considering adapting it to film.
No, Ava read an early version of the book. Um, she is an old friend of mine, and so I asked her to read it, and if she felt led, if she could provide a blurb, and which she did, which was very generous of her. But we went to UCLA together.
Oh,
Oh,
well, that's wonderful that she went ahead and made comments about the book, or that she kind of gave her stamp of approval on that book. That's amazing. So
Yes,
it's good to have good friends.
it is.
yeah, she's a name that people know.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, she does wonderful work. So to have her name on my book was just incredible, and another thing to be very grateful for.
Well, Diane, congratulations again on your success with your book. Can you show your cover one more time for our viewers who may not have joined us at the very beginning. It's called Black Candle Women. And now, does the title, did you pick the title or did the publisher pick the title?
We went through a lot of titles together, but that is the one that of our long list that we brainstormed, that's the one that I selected.
Okay. Well, congratulations again, and thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV and sharing your journey with us and with our viewers. And
Yeah.
I plan to get my copy. I hadn't gotten it yet, but I do plan to get my copy of Black. But I've been hearing about it for months. There's just so many books.
Now
and
that
so
we
little
talked,
time.
and I told you I ran across the story already when I went through my Audible library, so I will be downloading the book myself.
I appreciate that. And I've heard that the audio is that Bonnie Turpin does a really great job, is what I've heard. So yeah.
On the audiobook. Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you again for being a guest on the show. Have a great evening and continued success. And I hope it doesn't take a long time before you get your book deal for your second book.
Thank you. All right. Thank you both.
Thank you. Have
Okay.
a great night.
Bye-bye.